Welcome to the first episode of Dark Knight Films Reviews. I'm your host, Matt Spease, and today we'll be looking at Halloween, released in 1978. It's ironic that Halloween is the first film I am reviewing for the channel, as it is the film that made me want to become a filmmaker myself. So, what makes Halloween such an iconic film? Well, it was the first of the slasher craze. Technically, you could say that Psycho was really the first. It set the mold and set everything up. Then there was Peeping Tom. And then there was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then there was Black Christmas. So 4 films prior to the release of Halloween in 1978 set the template for what would eventually become what all slasher films are modeled after. And that was Halloween. Now, what made Halloween stand out and made it such a sensation? It was a modest budget at the time. $300,000 to $350,000 was what it was made for. It had mostly a little-known cast, with the exception of veteran actor Donald Pleasence.
Reigning from the decision of Judge Walter Ward, I have no choice but to remand Michael Audrey Myers to the Smiths Grove, Warren County Sanitarium, where he shall be placed in the care of a resident psychiatrist who shall report to this court no less than twice a year. Further, Michael Audrey Myers shall be brought before this court on the day of his 21st birthday, where he shall be tried as an adult for the murder of his sister, Judith Margaret Myers.
Dr. Loomis, Michael Myers must be removed from this sanitarium immediately. I would suggest the maximum security ward in Ridgefield.
Dr. Loomis, the decision has been made.
But this is a minimum security institution. The staff isn't adequately prepared.
Prepared for what? The boy is a catatonic. He exhibits comatose behavior. No reaction to external stimuli.
Have you read my notes?
Yes, we have, Doctor.
Why were they not presented at the hearing?
The judge requested Dr. Foster's analysis.
I spent 4 hours a day. 4 hours a day with this boy. Every day. For 6 months. Far longer than any court psychiatrist.
Dr. Loomis.
Michael Myers is the most dangerous patient I have ever observed.
Doctor, there is no diagnostic evidence to support that statement.
He's covering up. This catatonia is a conscious act. There's an instinctive force within him. He's waiting.
For what?
I don't know.
We can make a special recommendation to the court only if we feel that there is a justifiable reason to change the patient's treatments. I see no reason why he shouldn't remain here. We have adequate facilities for his care.
There's insufficient security here. Please, I am begging you to reconsider your decision.
Dr. Loomis, perhaps you should reconsider keeping him as your patient. We can get someone else to look after him.
I'll stay with him.
Now, is there anything else you wish to say, Dr. Loomis?
To analyze what made Halloween the sensation that it was, you only have to look at three things. Number one, the combination of John Carpenter's directing and Dean Cundey's excellent cinematography. Without a shadow of a doubt, that is one of the things that makes Halloween the classic that it is today. If you watched this film back like I did, back in the early to mid 80s on television, you were not getting the full feel of this film. They would crop the film down and cut off sides of on this side and this side of the screen. So a lot of Dean Cundey's excellent cinematography is lost in television versions of the film at that time. This was before we have these big widescreen, TVs that we have nowadays. But their cinematography was so great, it needed to be seen in that widescreen aspect. And it wasn't until the VHS, the widescreen VHS of Halloween was released, I believe, through Anchor Bay, that I saw the film in a different way. I had always loved it. And I always thought, when I was watching it on television, that John Carpenter messed up with one of his music cues. When Annie gets in the car and Michael grabs her by the throat and everything, the music cue goes, and then the grab happens, Because on TV, like I said, it was cropped on the sides. You couldn't see this side of the screen to see that Michael Myers had raised up behind the Annie character. So when I saw that VHS for the first time, and it was one of those widescreens where it's got a box the top and bottom of the screen, and everybody complained about that back when it was first released. Well, you're watching it on regular television, so you want that widescreen format to be able to see the movie how it was intended to be seen. Most people try to give you the bullshit complaint that it's cutting off the top and bottom of the screen. No, it wasn't. It was giving you the full screen. When you watched it on television, it was cutting off the sides of the screen. You were getting shit cut off on television. But when I watched that, I saw it, and I was like, I saw Michael raise up when the music. Then he grabs her, and that made me love the movie even more. I loved it back then, but whenever I saw the widescreen, it saw exactly, because I was born in '73, so I didn't get to see Halloween, unfortunately, in the theaters. I wish I did. I wasn't old enough to have been able to go see this movie in the theaters. So, seeing it like that, it was almost like being able to see it on the big screen and everything. So that just seeing the way that scene plays out, the way the scenes of Michael stalking throughout the film, the way that they set up the shots, they lit the shots, the scene of Bob mistaking Michael for Annie, trying to play a prank on him, and paying for it severely in the scene when he opens the door and says, "Come on out," and boom, Michael comes out, grabs him by the throat, lifts him up with one hand, raises a knife and stabs it into him, and then tilts his head, watching it. That kind of, the way it wasn't just how intense John Carpenter made the scene and how well it was shot, it was just the way it was lit, the way it looked, the visual style of Dean Cundy's cinematography that made the movie so great in every aspect. And then, of course, the number 2 factor of what makes this film so great: Donald Pleasence, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, originally, Christopher Lee was supposed to have been John Carpenter's original choice to play this role. I'm glad he went with that. I'm glad that Christopher Lee rejected it, and he ended up going with Donald Pleasence, because the reason is I think Dr. Loomis works so well the way he does because he's a normal guy. He's just an average guy. I mean, he doesn't look like he's some superhero. He doesn't look like he's some badass that's going to be able to take on Michael Myers. So when he's trying to find Michael throughout the film, you're not really on the guy's side to where you're like, wow, this guy's going to catch Michael and, take him down, Had they went with Christopher Lee is a bigger man in stature. He's been known for playing total badasses in films, up to that point even. This was even before Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and yet he already had that stature of being a total badass. So Christopher Lee playing this role, he would have been portrayed a lot different. Loomis you would have been like, well, yeah, he's going to stand up to Michael and kick Michael's ass, Christopher Lee's a badass. What do you expect? But, and he was a badass in real life, Christopher Lee was. Not just on films. But Donald Pleasence was not. Nothing about him screamed total badass, So he lures you in, and the way he portrays him is just so perfect.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, even the most rudimentary sense of life and death, good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, motionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
You genuinely care for the guy, and you're worried that he's in for something big here, and he's not ready for it, And it turns out he kind of is, but he isn't, And that's because of Donald Pleasence's great performance. I mean, the delivery of lines that he says in this film are unreal. How great he is in this film. Now, the third reason that this movie is as great as it is Nick Castle's performance as the Shape. And make no mistake, Nick Castle was playing the Shape. Tony Moran plays Michael Myers at the end when he's unmasked. And that is the only Michael Myers we see in this film. When Nick Castle has that mask on and is stalking and is going after people, he is otherworldly. He is a force. A force that is after one thing: to kill. And that is frightening. Truly frightening. And that is what makes Nick Castle's performance in this film so good.
And on a final note, I couldn't go through the positives for this film without mentioning the awesome score that John Carpenter composed for this film. It's one of the most recognizable scores ever in film history.
Now that we have went through all of the great things about the film, it's time to look at some of the less of the film. It is not a totally perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. John Carpenter's script at times is not the best. It's the cinematography, like I said, in the directing that brings it up a notch over his actual script. Some of the dialogue that he had written for the girls, particularly Linda, BJ Souls is excellent in her role in playing that, and she is the strongest of the three main actresses in the film. And Charles Cyphers as Sheriff Brackett is fine in his role. The actor playing Wynn, Dr. Wynn, at the beginning, he's great. He's serviceable. He works perfectly in the role that he's portraying. The actress playing Judith at the beginning, and the boy playing her boyfriend, they're serviceable. They're good. They're good in their roles. And the two child actors playing Tommy and Lindsay are great. They're great little child actors. There's no complaints there. The biggest complaints I have for the film is some of the script, and of course Annie. Annie is number one on the worst things about Halloween. Because Nancy Loomis cannot act. She is horrible in every scene she's in. I never really liked her as an actress because, I think she was just a friend of John Carpenter's who he liked to just throw into his films at the beginning of his career. She was in Halloween. She was in The Fog. She was in Halloween 3. And that wasn't even his film, but he was producer on it. But I just never really liked her as an actress. She's never had any talent as far as acting goes. She's wooden, and she's lackluster. And that was the worst part about Annie's death scene. like I said, I love the cinematography. I love the way that scene was shot, the way it looks, the suspense leading up to it. But her performance when she gets grabbed and she is choked and then slashed across the throat and killed, it really hurts that scene. I ended up, in one of my films, I ended up taking that style of that scene, and framing wise, I did the same thing that Carpenter did, and in my film Chameleon Killer from 2003, and the actress that I had playing it was no big actress. She wasn't, some great, phenomenal actress or anything, but even she was better than Nancy Loomis. So she really hurt the film. And the second thing after her is your lead. Jamie Lee Curtis became a scream queen because of this film. There's a reason she is called a scream queen and not an acting queen. She was bland, boring, to say the least, in every film she's ever played in. From Halloween to all the other horror films that she worked on after that, from Halloween to Terror Train to Prom Night, she's never really impressed me as an actress. And this film was no different. I'm never really invested in her as Laurie. She is the only reason she's not the worst actress in the movie is because she's acting alongside Nancy Loomis. And Nancy Loomis is the bottom of the barrel. So, yes, near the end of the film, when she has to scream and panic and cry and run, she's fine. She's great when she has to scream. That doesn't make you a great actress. In the rest of the movie, she's pretty stale and pretty bland in the way she performs as Laurie. But, like I said, it's not a perfect film, and I know a lot of you people are not going to fully agree with me on the whole Jamie Lee Curtis thing, because I know there's a lot of people out there that like her, and that's fine. I mean, that's why we have differing opinions. You don't have to like the same thing that I like, and I don't have to like the same thing you like. It's the way this works, So, for a final review of Halloween, in spite of the two big negatives of the big negative, Nancy Loomis, and the minor negative of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, I would give the movie still the positives, the three positives that it has in it. The two-pack of John Carpenter and Dean Cundy's cinematography, and Donald Pleasence's great performance in the film, and Nick Castle's awesome performance as the Shape. And then, a fine supporting cast other than the two negatives. I give the film 9. I give it a 9, which a 10 is the highest. So I love this film. It's just, it doesn't make the 10 just because of the Nancy Loomis and Jamie Lee Curtis aspects. Like I said, some people are gonna, disagree with that, but hey, it's my opinion, So, hope you have enjoyed my review of Halloween. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next review.